My son called me on a Tuesday morning. His voice was calm, almost bored. He said, "Dad, you owe $312,000. You need to pay it by Friday, or everything we built together goes under." I didn't say a word. I just hung up the phone, and then I started planning the most important disappearing act of my life.
My name is Mike. I'm 64 years old. And for most of my adult life, I was the kind of man who showed up. Every single time. My wife, Carol, passed away 11 years ago. Breast cancer. Stage 4. She fought for 2 years, and when she finally let go, she took half of me with her. After she died, I had 2 choices. Fall apart. Or build something she'd be proud of. I chose to build. I had a small landscaping business, 3 trucks, 7 employees, and a lot of sweat equity. After Carol passed, I threw myself into it completely. 7 days a week. Early mornings, late nights. I didn't do it for the money. I did it because sitting still meant thinking about her. By the time my son, Ethan, was in his late 20s, the business had grown into something real. We had 18 trucks. 42 employees. Commercial contracts with schools, hospitals, and 3 regional shopping centers. It was worth somewhere around $2.8 million on paper. And Ethan, my only child, had grown up watching me build it. He was smart. I'll give him that. Charming, well-dressed, confident. He had his mother's eyes and his grandfather's stubbornness. When he was 26, he came to me and said he wanted to join the business. I cried. I'm not ashamed to say that. I cried because I thought Carol was somehow behind it, sending me a sign that her boy was going to carry the family legacy forward. So I brought him in. I gave him a salary, a title, and access. I introduced him to every client personally. I taught him everything I knew. Contracts, vendors, seasonal strategy, employee management, all of it. And for the first 3 years, things were good. But here's the thing about giving someone too much too fast. Sometimes they stop seeing it as a gift and start seeing it as something they're owed. I can't point to one exact moment when Ethan became someone I didn't recognize. It happened slowly. The way rust spreads. He started showing up late to job sites. Dismissing employees I'd known for 15 years. Spending money on things I didn't approve, new office furniture, a company truck that was nicer than anything I'd ever driven, a team retreat in Miami that cost $14,000. I said something about the Miami trip. He said, "Dad, you have to invest in morale." I said, "Ethan, I built morale by paying people on time and treating them with respect." He laughed. That laugh. I remember it clearly. It wasn't mean exactly. It was dismissive. Like I was a relic. An old man who didn't understand how things worked anymore. Around that time, he also started bringing his girlfriend, later his fiancée, and then his wife, into the business decisions. Her name was Tiffany. Tiffany was sharp, well-educated, and had come from money. Old money. The kind of family that doesn't talk about what they have because they've always had it. She looked at my landscaping business the way you look at something quaint. Cute. Modest. Beneath her. But she was also smart enough to see what it was worth. And I truly believe, it was Tiffany who planted the first seeds of what was coming. 3 years ago, Ethan came to me with an expansion plan. He wanted to acquire 2 smaller landscaping companies in neighboring counties, combine their contracts with ours, and position the whole thing for a potential sale or franchise arrangement. It sounded ambitious. I was cautious. I said, "Show me the numbers. Show me the risk." He showed me a presentation. 42 slides. Very professional. Tiffany had clearly helped put it together. The projected return looked strong on paper. I told him I needed more time to review. He said, "Dad, the opportunity window is closing. We have to act now." I said, "Let me think about it." That should have been the end of it. But I made one catastrophic mistake. Several years earlier, when Ethan first joined the company, I had added him as a co-signatory on one of the business's credit lines. A small one. It was meant for operational expenses, equipment repairs, supply orders, that kind of thing. The credit line had a limit of $50,000. What I didn't know, what I had no idea about, was that Ethan had been working with a commercial lender for 6 months behind my back. He had used that co-signatory status, combined with the company's financials, to secure a $312,000 business loan. He didn't tell me. He didn't ask me. He just did it. And here's the part that made my knees go weak when I found out. He had listed my personal assets as secondary collateral. My home. The house I had bought with Carol. The house where Ethan grew up. The house with the oak tree in the backyard that she had planted the year we moved in. That house was on the line. The acquisitions didn't go the way Ethan planned. One of the companies he bought had hidden liabilities, undisclosed lawsuits, employee wage violations, equipment that was leased, not owned. The other company's biggest client walked within 60 days of the deal closing. By last spring, the expansion had collapsed. The $312,000 loan went into default. And on a Tuesday morning in April, my phone rang. Ethan's voice was calm. Almost bored. "Dad, the lender is coming after the collateral. The business can't cover it. Your name is on the line for $312,000. You need to pay it by Friday, or they start proceedings against the house." I felt the blood drain out of my face. "Friday," I said. "That's 3 days." "I know. I'm sorry. But you need to handle it. You need to handle it. Not we. Not I made a mistake, Dad, and I'm going to fix it. You need to handle it." I asked him one question. "Ethan, did you sign my name to anything?" Long pause. "It's complicated, Dad." I hung up. And I sat in Carol's kitchen, our kitchen, in complete silence. And then something shifted inside me. Not panic. Not rage. Something colder. Something clear. I only made one phone call that afternoon. Not to a bank. Not to a lawyer. Not to Ethan. I called my brother Dennis. Dennis is 4 years younger than me, lives 2 states away in Tennessee, and has spent 30 years as a commercial real estate attorney. He's also the only person who ever told me, the day Ethan joined the business, "Make sure every signature has limits, Mike. Blood doesn't protect you in business." I hadn't listened closely enough. I told Dennis everything. The loan. The collateral. The 3-day deadline. The phrase, "You need to handle it." Dennis was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Mike, don't pay a single dollar. Don't call the lender. Don't call Ethan back. Do exactly what I tell you." He talked for 45 minutes. By the end of the call, I had a plan. And it started with something Ethan never expected. Me disappearing. Here's the thing about threatening someone with a Friday deadline. You're assuming they'll still be there on Friday. By Wednesday evening, I had done the following things, all completely legal, all completely deliberate. First, I called Dennis back and got him formally retained as my legal counsel. He connected me with a colleague in my state, a woman named Patricia, a civil litigation attorney with 22 years of experience in fraudulent loan origination cases. Patricia reviewed the loan documents Dennis had requested through a formal legal notice to the lender. Her assessment, delivered to me Wednesday afternoon, was 3 words. "This is fraud, Mike." Ethan had used my co-signatory status to imply my consent on a loan I had never approved, never reviewed, and never signed for directly. He had represented my personal assets as collateral without my documented authorization. This wasn't a gray area. This was actionable. Second, I contacted the lender directly, through Patricia, and placed them on official legal notice that the loan authorization was being disputed and that any action against my personal assets would be met with immediate litigation. Lenders do not like that kind of letter. They especially don't like it when it comes from an attorney who includes phrases like fraudulent inducement and unauthorized collateralization. The Friday deadline disappeared very quickly. Third, And this is where the disappearing act came in. I drove to Dennis's house in Tennessee. I packed one bag. I told no one except Dennis and Patricia where I was going. I turned off my regular phone and picked up a prepaid one. And I left. Ethan called my regular phone 17 times between Wednesday night and Friday morning. I didn't answer once. Now, here's where I need to back up. Because there's something I haven't told you yet. Something Ethan didn't know. A year before any of this happened, before the expansion plan, before Tiffany's influence fully took hold, before I started seeing the rust spread, Dennis had quietly advised me to do something. He said, "Mike, you've got a valuable business and a paid-off house. Put the house in a trust." I said, "What kind of trust?" He said, "A revocable living trust. You control it entirely while you're alive. But your personal name comes off the deed. The trust owns the house. And the trust has specific language about what it can and cannot be used as collateral for." I had done it quietly, 14 months before Ethan's phone call. The house was no longer in my name. It was in the name of the Carol M. Henderson Family Trust. Named for my wife. When Ethan's lender went looking for the asset Ethan had listed as collateral, they found a trust they had no legal claim to. Because Ethan hadn't disclosed the trust. He had listed the property using old deed records before the transfer had been made public in the county records system. Whether he didn't know about the trust, or whether he knew and hoped no one would check, I honestly don't know. But it didn't matter. The collateral was a ghost. I was in Tennessee for 11 days. Dennis had a spare room and a very patient disposition. Every morning we sat on his porch with coffee and Patricia would call with updates. The lender, once they received Patricia's notice, moved quickly into a defensive posture. They began their own investigation into how the loan had been originated. Into whether proper authorization had been secured. Into whether Ethan had misrepresented the collateral. That investigation was not going well for Ethan. Meanwhile, Ethan was panicking. He called my brother 3 times. Dennis answered once, very briefly, and said only, "Mike is represented by counsel. Please direct all communication to Patricia." Then he hung up. Ethan showed up at my house on Saturday. Found it locked, quiet, and empty. He called my neighbor, an older woman named Gloria who had known me for 20 years. Gloria, God bless her, told him she hadn't seen me in a few days and didn't know where I was. Which was true. She didn't know. Because I hadn't told her. I heard later from Gloria, after everything was resolved, that Ethan had stood in my driveway for a long time. Just standing there. Looking at the house. She said he looked scared. Good. After 11 days, Patricia told me it was time to come back. Not because the situation had resolved itself. Because it was time to resolve it, on my terms. She had arranged a meeting. Formal. Conference room. Herself, me, Dennis on speakerphone, the lender's legal representative, and Ethan. I drove back on a Sunday night. I slept in my own house, Carol's house, the trust's house, for the first time in nearly 2 weeks. I sat in the kitchen and I talked to her for a while. Not out loud. Just in my head the way I do sometimes. I told her what was happening. I told her I missed her. I told her I was going to handle it. The meeting was Monday at 10 in the morning. I was early. Ethan walked in 8 minutes late. He looked like he hadn't slept. His shirt was wrinkled. The confidence, that casual, dismissive confidence, was completely gone. He looked at me and started to speak. Patricia held up one hand. "Let's start with the documents," she said. Patricia was extraordinary. She laid everything out with the kind of quiet precision that makes people in the wrong feel every word like a slow-moving pressure against their chest. She presented the loan authorization documents. She showed exactly which signatures were present, which were absent, and what the legal standard for co-signatory authorization actually required. She presented the collateral listing, the property, and then she presented the trust documents. She showed the date the trust was established. She showed the date the property deed transferred. She showed that Ethan's listed collateral did not legally exist in the form he had represented. The lender's attorney went very still. Then Patricia turned to Ethan. At what point did you become aware that the property had been transferred to the Carol M. Henderson Family Trust? Ethan looked at me. I didn't look away, he said. I didn't know. Patricia nodded. That will be important as this process continues. She then explained, clearly, for the record, that I was prepared to pursue claims of fraudulent loan origination, unauthorized use of co-signatory status, and intentional misrepresentation of collateral against both the lender and, potentially, Ethan individually. The lender's attorney asked for a recess. They were gone for 40 minutes. When they came back, their position had changed significantly. The lender, facing the possibility of a fraudulent origination lawsuit, was highly motivated to restructure. Their exposure was significant. If it came out that one of their loan officers had processed a $312,000 commercial loan without verifying co-signatory authorization, the regulatory and legal implications would be far worse than eating the loss. What Patricia negotiated, over the next several hours, was this. The lender agreed to release my personal assets, including the trust property, from all claim. Completely. The loan became solely Ethan's liability. Not mine. Not the house. Not Carol's trust. Ethan's. When that was formalized, Patricia set down her pen and looked at Ethan. Do you have anything you'd like to say to your father? The room was very quiet. Ethan sat there for a long moment. He looked older than I'd ever seen him look. He said, Dad, He stopped. Started again. I thought I could fix it before you found out. The expansion was supposed to work. I thought I was doing the right thing for the business. For us. I let him finish. Then I said very quietly, You put your mother's house on the line, Ethan. The house she picked out. The house with her oak tree in the backyard. You used her memory as collateral and you didn't even tell me. He didn't have anything to say to that. Neither did I. I stood up and I left. Ethan is now personally responsible for resolving the $312,000 loan. He negotiated a restructured repayment plan with the lender. He sold his share of the two acquired companies, at a significant loss, to cover part of the balance. Tiffany's family reportedly helped with a portion of it. I have been told this secondhand. Because Ethan and I have not spoken since that conference room. Not directly. He texted me once, about 3 weeks later. A long message. An apology. An explanation. A request to talk. I read it. I didn't respond. I'm not going to pretend I'm at peace with all of it. He's my son. I love him in a deep, helpless way that doesn't turn off no matter what someone does. I look at photos of him as a little kid and I still feel that enormous thing you feel when you look at your own child. But love doesn't mean accepting what happened. And forgiveness, if it comes, will come on my timeline. Not his. As for the business, I restructured it. With Patricia's help and Dennis's guidance, I placed the business itself into a properly organized LLC with clearly defined ownership and authorization parameters. I bought out Ethan's stake, at fair market value, documented and formal, and he is no longer part of the company. I hired a young operations manager named Chris who reminds me a little of myself at 30. Hardworking. Unpretentious. Shows up early. We have 21 trucks now. I still drive out to job sites sometimes. Not because I have to. Because I like to. Because Carol used to say I was most like myself when I was working with my hands. Last week, I sat in the backyard. It was a Saturday morning early, before the heat of the day settled in. I had a cup of coffee and I sat under Carol's oak tree. It's a big tree now. Wide canopy. Deep roots. She planted it as a sapling the year we moved in. She said, By the time this tree is full grown, we'll be old and it'll be shading our grandkids. I thought about that. I thought about how much she would have hated what happened. And how much she would have approved of how I handled it. She was always the one who told me, when I was young and hot-headed, that the most powerful thing a person can do is stay calm when someone expects you to fall apart. She'd say, "Mike, panic is what they're counting on. Don't give it to them." I didn't panic. I disappeared. I let the plan work. And I came back, to my house, to my business, to my life, with everything intact. Epilogue: what I want you to take from this. If you're watching this and you have family in your business, listen to me very carefully. Love is not a legal document. Trust is not a contract. The people who love you the most are also the people who can hurt you the most, because you lower your guard for them. You skip steps. You make exceptions. You say, "This is family, we don't need all that paperwork." You need the paperwork. Protect what you've built, not because you expect betrayal, but because protection is what makes love sustainable. It removes temptation. It removes ambiguity. It removes the moment where someone tells themselves that it's fine, it's just paperwork, Dad won't mind. I also want to say something about disappearing. When Ethan called me with that Friday deadline, he was counting on a specific version of me. The version that would panic. The version that would scramble and beg and try to fix it immediately. The version that would write a check just to make the problem stop. When I didn't show up, when I went quiet, went dark, vanished from the script he had written, it took all the power away from his deadline. Deadlines only work when the other person is afraid. I wasn't afraid. I was prepared. There's a difference. And that difference, the one between fear and preparation, is what saved my home, my business, and whatever is left of my relationship with my son. I still have the prepaid phone from those 11 days in Tennessee. It's in the top drawer of my nightstand. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe just to remind myself that sometimes the strongest move you can make is the one nobody sees coming. The one where you don't fight back loud. You just go quiet. You go calm. You go away. And you let the truth do what it always does. Eventually. Inevitably. It comes out. Every single time. Thanks for watching. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever been taken advantage of by someone you trusted, someone you loved, someone you gave everything to, drop a comment below. You're not alone. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. There are more stories coming. And every single one of them ends the same way. Justice. Always.